Have you ever stopped to wonder, what if the greatest tragedy of our lives isn't death but birth itself? What if the very moment we enter this world is the beginning of a journey defined not by joy and fulfillment, but by suffering, despair, and the inescapable reality of mortality? These are not questions most people dare to ask. But today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most provocative and unsettling philosophies ever written, where we explore the uncharted territories of thought, life's most challenging questions, and the philosophies that shape our world. Today, we're talking about Emil Cioran, a thinker so unapologetically raw in his critique of existence that his ideas have been called both brilliant and unbearable. His works, like The Trouble with Being Born, have left readers questioning everything they know about life, suffering, and the meaning of it all. But before we plunge into this labyrinth of thought, let me ask you this. Could it be possible that the very act of bringing a child into this world is an ethical dilemma, perhaps even a crime? Cioran believed so, and his stark views on procreation, consciousness, and the tragedy of existence might just change how you see the world. Or perhaps they'll confirm the thoughts you've always been too afraid to admit to yourself. This video is not for the faint of heart. We're going to peel back the layers of Cioran's philosophy, explore stories and examples that bring his ideas to life, and most importantly, reflect on what his words mean for us today. Whether you're here out of curiosity or because these questions resonate deeply, I promise you one thing. By the end of this video, you'll see life and birth through an entirely new lens. Before we begin, let me remind you to like this video if you enjoy content that dives deep into philosophy and the human experience. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss these thought-provoking explorations. And if you'd like to support the channel and help us continue creating content like this, consider donating through the link in the description or joining our Patreon for exclusive perks. Your support means everything to us. Now, let's unravel the unsettling, mesmerizing world of Emil Cioran. Emil Cioran's philosophy, particularly his views on antinatalism, offers a deeply unsettling but intellectually stimulating critique of existence. His assertion that birth is life's greatest tragedy invites us to re-examine the very foundation of human experience. Born into a world without consent, Cioran argues, we are thrust into a life filled with suffering, misfortune, and eventual decay. This perspective resonates with a subset of philosophical thought that views life not as a gift, but as an imposition, a burden we must carry until death offers us release. Cioran's contention that procreation is akin to a crime further challenges our deeply ingrained notions of parenthood, morality, and the purpose of life. Cioran's philosophy is not merely pessimistic. It is an unflinching confrontation with the absurdity of existence. He posits that consciousness, the very trait that distinguishes humanity, is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it allows us to experience beauty, creativity, and connection. On the other hand, it exposes us to profound despair, existential dread, and a relentless awareness of our mortality. Cioran's writings often depict consciousness as a dagger in the flesh, a source of both suffering and the awareness of that suffering. He juxtaposes the serenity of pre-birth non-existence with the chaos and pain of life, suggesting that the ultimate freedom lies in never being born at all. This radical perspective aligns Cioran with thinkers like Arthur Schopenhauer, who also viewed life as inherently filled with suffering. Schopenhauer famously argued that existence is driven by an insatiable will, a force that perpetuates suffering through endless desires. Cioran extends this idea by emphasizing the ethical implications of procreation. By bringing a child into the world, parents are not only perpetuating the cycle of suffering, but also imposing existence on someone who has not and cannot consent to it. This notion strikes at the heart of societal norms, where procreation is often celebrated as a natural and virtuous act. To understand Cioran's perspective, one might consider the paradoxical nature of human endeavors. People strive for happiness, success, and meaning, yet these pursuits are often accompanied by disappointment, failure, and existential angst. Imagine a parent who dreams of providing their child with a joyful and fulfilling life, only to see that child grapple with depression, illness, or tragedy. This scenario, while deeply personal, reflects the broader human condition, the inevitability of suffering. For Cioran, the act of creating life is akin to setting someone up for inevitable pain, regardless of intentions or circumstances. While Cioran's views may seem extreme, they force us to confront uncomfortable truths about existence. For instance, why do we fear death if life is so filled with suffering? Cioran suggests that our fear of death is, in reality, a projection of our fear of birth, the traumatic moment of coming into existence, with its inherent vulnerability and uncertainty, casts a long shadow over our lives. Death, by contrast, offers a return to the peaceful non-existence we experienced before birth. This reversal of conventional wisdom challenges us to rethink our attitudes toward life and mortality. Consider the popular phrase, "rest in peace," often used to describe the deceased. This expression reflects a tacit acknowledgement that death brings relief from life's struggles. If we genuinely believe that death offers peace, why do we celebrate birth, which marks the beginning of those struggles? This contradiction on the tension between societal norms and the philosophical realities Cioran highlights. By labeling procreation a crime, Cioran forces us to question the ethics of bringing new life into a world fraught with suffering, uncertainty, and inevitable decline. Examples from modern life further illustrate Cioran's ideas. Environmental degradation, political instability, and economic inequality create a world where many individuals struggle to find hope or security. Despite these challenges, people continue to have children, often motivated by cultural, religious, or personal ideals. Yet, as Cioran might argue, these motivations cannot override the ethical dilemma of imposing life on another being. Imagine a couple living in a war-torn region who decide to have a child, hoping to bring joy and meaning to their lives. While their decision is understandable, it also raises questions about the fairness of subjecting their child to such precarious circumstances. Cioran's critique extends beyond procreation to the broader human condition. He views life as a series of futile attempts to escape suffering, whether through work, relationships, or spiritual pursuits. Even acts of creativity, such as writing or art, are ultimately ways of coping with the absurdity of existence. Cioran himself described his writing as postponed suicide, a means of enduring life rather than embracing it. This perspective invites us to reflect on the motivations behind our own pursuits. Are we genuinely seeking fulfillment, or are we merely distracting ourselves from the inevitable hardships of life? For Cioran, acceptance is a key to coping with existence. He advocates for a form of resignation, acknowledging that life is a defeat we must endure. This acceptance is not about finding joy or meaning, but about coming to terms with the harsh realities of existence. In this sense, Cioran's philosophy aligns with certain aspects of Stoicism, which emphasizes the importance of accepting what we cannot control. However, unlike Stoicism, Cioran does not offer a structured path to inner peace. His approach is more raw, more visceral, and ultimately more challenging. One way to make sense of Cioran's philosophy is to consider the concept of ataraxia, a state of tranquility sought by ancient philosophers like Epicurus. While Cioran does not explicitly advocate for ataraxia, his writings suggest a longing for freedom from the turmoil of existence. This longing is evident in his descriptions of pre-birth non-existence as a state of peace and serenity. Yet, achieving such tranquility in life is elusive, as consciousness continually disrupts our attempts to find solace. Cioran's life exemplifies his philosophical stance. He rejected conventional measures of success, such as academic achievement, wealth, or fame. Instead, he chose a life of austerity and introspection, distancing himself from societal expectations. His disdain for ambition and productivity reflects his broader critique of human endeavors. By embracing failure and avoiding attachments to success, Cioran sought to minimize the suffering that comes from unfulfilled desires. This approach, while unconventional, offers a counterpoint to the relentless pursuit of achievement that dominates modern culture. Ultimately, Cioran's philosophy challenges us to confront the fundamental questions of existence. Is life inherently valuable, or is it a burden to be endured? Are our efforts to find meaning and happiness futile, or do they offer glimpses of something greater? While Cioran's answers may be bleak, they compel us to examine our assumptions and consider alternative perspectives. His work serves as a reminder that philosophy is not just an abstract exercise but a deeply personal exploration of what it means to be human. In grappling with his ideas, we may find our own ways to navigate the complexities of existence. Antinatalism, as a philosophical stance, challenges one of the most deeply ingrained aspects of human life: the act of bringing new life into the world. It proposes that procreation is not an inherently good or neutral act, but rather a morally questionable one, given the inevitable suffering that accompanies existence. At its core, antinatalism asserts that non-existence is preferable to life because life, by its very nature, entails pain, disappointment, and eventual death. This viewpoint runs counter to societal norms, which often celebrate birth and view it as a continuation of human legacy, love, or purpose. Within this framework, Emil Cioran emerges as one of the most uncompromising voices, taking the concept of antinatalism to a profound and provocative extreme. Cioran's stance on antinatalism builds upon earlier philosophical traditions, notably those of Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer argued that life is driven by an insatiable will to live, which he viewed as the root of all suffering. This will perpetuates desires that can never be fully satisfied, creating a cycle of striving and dissatisfaction. Schopenhauer's bleak assessment of existence posited that the only way to mitigate suffering was through renunciation and a denial of the will. Cioran, however, took this a step further by suggesting that the very act of bringing a new life into existence is an ethical misstep. While Schopenhauer's work emphasizes the futility of individual desires, Cioran addresses the broader implications of perpetuating existence itself. Cioran's argument rests on a central claim: being born is life's original tragedy. Unlike Schopenhauer, who focused on the struggles of living, Cioran identifies the act of birth as the moment when suffering begins. He frames birth not as a joyous event, but as a catastrophe of forced entry into a world of pain and uncertainty. For Cioran, non-existence represents a state of serenity, free from the burdens of consciousness and desire. He describes this pre-birth state as a kind of ideal, a condition of stillness and peace that stands in stark contrast to the chaos of life. This perspective raises significant ethical questions about procreation. If life is inherently filled with suffering, is it fair to impose existence on another being? Procreation, in Cioran's view, is not an act of love or generosity but an imposition, one that condemns another individual to navigate life's inevitable hardships. He provocatively labels procreation as a crime, suggesting that bringing a child into the world is an act of moral irresponsibility. This stark characterization forces us to confront the ethical dimensions of a practice that is often taken for granted or even celebrated. To contextualize Cioran's ideas in more relatable terms, consider the analogy of an individual inviting someone to a dangerous journey without informing them of the risks. If the invited person suffers injury or loss during the journey, is the inviter not partly responsible? Similarly, parents, by deciding to have children, expose them to the inherent risks and suffering of life without their consent. While this analogy may seem extreme, it encapsulates the core of Cioran's argument. The act of creation is ethically fraught because it imposes risks on another being who has no agency in the decision. Cioran's views also resonate with contemporary debates surrounding the ethics of procreation in a world facing significant challenges. Issues like climate change, overpopulation, and political instability highlight the precariousness of human existence. In this context, some antinatalists argue that bringing new life into such a troubled world is not only ethically questionable but also environmentally irresponsible. For instance, a couple deciding to have a child in a region plagued by war or famine might be seen as prioritizing their personal desires over the well-being of the child. This perspective aligns with Cioran's critique of procreation, which he views as a self-centered act that disregards the consequences for the individual being brought into existence. However, Societal norms often clash with antinatalist philosophy. In many cultures, procreation is considered a fundamental aspect of human life, tied to ideas of family, legacy, and purpose. Religious and cultural narratives frequently frame childbirth as a divine blessing or a moral duty, creating a powerful counterweight to antinatalist arguments. For example, many religious traditions emphasize the sanctity of life and view having children as a way of fulfilling divine commandments or contributing to the continuity of the community. These narratives can make antinatalist perspectives seem radical or even heretical. Yet, Cioran's philosophy invites us to question these societal norms. Why do we view procreation as inherently good? Is it because we truly believe in the value of life? Or is it because we are conditioned to see it as a moral imperative? These questions challenge deeply held assumptions and open the door to a more nuanced understanding of the ethics of procreation. Cioran's argument does not necessarily call for an end to procreation, but rather urges us to critically examine our motivations and the consequences of our actions. From a personal perspective, the ethics of procreation is a complex and deeply personal issue. While I do not fully align with Cioran's stark antinatalism, I find his critique of societal norms compelling. Procreation is often romanticized, with little consideration given to the long-term implications for both the child and the world they will inhabit. For instance, when parents say they want children to bring joy into their lives or to carry on their family name, they are expressing desires that are fundamentally self-centered. While these desires are natural and human, they should be weighed against the potential suffering that the child may experience. Cioran's work also prompts reflection on how society frames success and happiness. We often equate a good life with achievements, relationships, and experiences. However, as Cioran points out, these pursuits are not guarantees of happiness and often come with their own forms of suffering. For example, a person who achieves professional success may experience stress, burnout, or a sense of emptiness despite their accomplishments. Similarly, relationships, while fulfilling, can also bring heartbreak, loss, and disappointment. Cioran's philosophy invites us to consider whether the pursuit of these goals justifies the suffering they entail. One way to reconcile these conflicting perspectives is to acknowledge the dual nature of existence. Life is neither wholly good nor wholly bad. It is a mixture of joy and sorrow, triumph and tragedy. While Cioran focuses on the negative aspects of life, his critique serves as a counterbalance to overly optimistic narratives that ignore life's inherent difficulties. By acknowledging the complexity of existence, we can approach the ethics of procreation with greater humility and awareness. In practical terms, this might mean considering alternatives to traditional procreation. For example, adoption provides a way to experience parenthood without creating new life. It also addresses the needs of children who are already in the world and in need of care. Such an approach aligns with antinatalist concerns by minimizing the creation of new suffering while still fulfilling the desire for family and connection. While this may not fully address Cioran's critique, it represents a more ethical and compassionate approach to the question of procreation. Ultimately, Cioran's antinatalism is not just a critique of procreation but a broader commentary on the human condition. It challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about suffering, desire, and the nature of existence. While his philosophy may not offer definitive answers, it compels us to think deeply about the choices we make and their ethical implications. By engaging with Cioran's ideas, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit, even if we do not fully embrace his conclusions. Emil Cioran's philosophy emerges from a deeply personal and historically rich context, one that is marked by his Romanian roots and his eventual disavowal of his homeland's cultural identity. Born in 1911 in the remote village of Razanari, Romania, Cioran's early life was shaped by a blend of Orthodox Christian traditions and rural simplicity. His father, an Orthodox priest, and his mother, a woman active in Christian women's organizations, provided a conservative religious backdrop that Cioran would later reject. This tension between his upbringing and his intellectual trajectory plays a significant role in shaping his philosophical outlook. Cioran's disdain for Romanian culture became a recurring theme in his reflections. He often criticized what he perceived as the stagnation and inefficiency of Romanian society, describing his countrymen as a people adept at wasting time. To Cioran, Romania represented failure, a nation that, in his view, had not achieved greatness and was marked by mediocrity. These sentiments were not only personal grievances but also reflections of his broader philosophical pessimism. He saw Romania as a microcosm of humanity's collective shortcomings, a lens through which he developed his ideas about existence and suffering. In 1937, Cioran left Romania for France, a move that symbolized his break from his cultural roots and his search for intellectual and personal freedom. France offered him an environment more conducive to his existential inquiries, and he chose to remain there for the rest of his life. This geographical and cultural shift was not merely physical but also intellectual. In France, Cioran transitioned from writing in Romanian to French, a change that he described as liberating, allowing him to articulate his thoughts with a new precision and clarity. By distancing himself from Romania, Cioran was able to refine his philosophical voice, unencumbered by the cultural baggage of his homeland. Cioran's philosophical contributions are most evident in his major works, particularly On the Heights of Despair and The Trouble with Being Born, published in 1934 when he was just 23 years old. On the Heights of Despair reflects his early exploration of existential anguish and the darker aspects of human experience. Written during a period of intense insomnia, the book is characterized by its raw, visceral tone and its unrelenting focus on suffering. In it, Cioran delves into themes of despair, futility, and the absurdity of existence, laying the groundwork for his later philosophical inquiries. The work is deeply introspective, drawing on Cioran's personal struggles and his acute awareness of life's inherent tragedies. For many readers, On the Heights of Despair serves as an entry point into Cioran's worldview. Its aphoristic style and poetic intensity resonate with those who have grappled with similar existential questions. The book does not offer solutions or solace, but instead invites readers to confront the uncomfortable truths about life and suffering. In this way, it aligns with the broader tradition of existentialism, echoing themes found in the works of Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and Schopenhauer. Yet, Cioran's approach is uniquely his own, marked by a blend of philosophical rigor and literary artistry. Cioran's later work, The Trouble with Being Born, published in 1973, represents a culmination of his philosophical thought. This collection of aphorisms expands on the themes introduced in his earlier writings, offering a more refined and pointed critique of existence. The book is structured around the idea that birth is not a blessing but a catastrophe, the moment when the suffering of life begins. For Cioran, being born is the original sin, an event that sets the stage for all subsequent pain and disappointment. He describes life as a laughable accident, emphasizing the absurdity and futility of existence. One of the most striking aspects of The Trouble with Being Born is its exploration of consciousness as a source of suffering. Cioran argues that consciousness, while enabling self-awareness and intellectual inquiry, also heightens our capacity for pain. Unlike animals or inanimate objects, humans are acutely aware of their mortality, their limitations, and the inevitable decline that accompanies aging. This awareness creates a paradox. While consciousness allows us to reflect on life's beauty and complexity, it also magnifies our despair. Cioran likens consciousness to a dagger in the flesh, a constant reminder of our vulnerability and impermanence. To illustrate this idea, consider the universal experience of anxiety. A person lying awake at night, consumed by thoughts of an uncertain future or unresolved regrets, exemplifies the burden of consciousness. Unlike a dog or a bird that sleeps soundly without such concerns, humans are trapped in a cycle of overthinking and existential dread. Cioran's critique of consciousness resonates with anyone who has felt overwhelmed by the weight of their own thoughts, highlighting the double-edged nature of human awareness. In The Trouble with Being Born, Cioran also addresses the ethical implications of procreation. He provocatively describes the act of bringing a child into the world as a crime, arguing that it imposes existence and, by extension, suffering on another being without their consent. This perspective aligns with his broader philosophical pessimism, challenging societal norms that celebrate parenthood as a virtuous and fulfilling endeavor. For Cioran, procreation is not an act of love, but an act of selfishness, driven by an unconscious desire to perpetuate the cycle of life and suffering. While these ideas may seem radical, they invite important ethical questions. For instance, is it fair to bring a child into a world filled with suffering, uncertainty, and inevitable death? Consider a contemporary example. A couple deciding to have a child in a region affected by war or environmental degradation. While their desire to create life may stem from love or hope, they are also subjecting their child to a precarious and potentially painful existence. Cioran's critique forces us to confront the moral dimensions of such decisions, challenging the assumption that procreation is an unqualified good. The themes of the trouble with being born extend beyond individual choices to broader philosophical questions about the meaning and value of life. Cioran's emphasis on the inevitability of suffering echoes the Buddhist concept of dukkha, the idea that life is inherently marked by dissatisfaction and impermanence. However, unlike Buddhism, which offers a path to liberation through practices like meditation and ethical living, Cioran provides no such solutions. His philosophy is one of resignation and endurance, a stark acknowledgement of life's harsh realities without the promise of redemption. Cioran's disdain for optimism and progress is another defining feature of his work. He rejects the idea that humanity can overcome its inherent flaws through technological advancements or social reforms. For Cioran, these pursuits are distractions from the fundamental absurdity of existence. He sees history as a cycle of repeated failures, with each generation repeating the mistakes of its predecessors. This skepticism extends to his view of intellectual and cultural achievements, which he regards as temporary and ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Despite the bleakness of his philosophy, Cioran's writings are not without moments of dark humor and irony. He often uses wit to underplay the absurdity of life, inviting readers to laugh at the very things that cause them pain. This juxtaposition of despair and humor adds a unique dimension to his work, making it both challenging and deeply human. It reflects Cioran's ability to confront life's tragedies with a sense of detachment, acknowledging their weight while refusing to be entirely crushed by them. Cioran's life and work continue to resonate with readers who grapple with existential questions. His philosophy, though uncompromising, offers a lens through which to examine the human condition with honesty and depth, whether one agrees with his conclusions or not. Cioran's insights into suffering, consciousness, and the nature of existence provoke thought and challenge assumptions. In doing so, he leaves an enduring legacy as one of the most profound and provocative thinkers of the modern era. Emil Cioran's philosophy begins with a bold and deeply unsettling premise. Birth is not a gift or a blessing, but rather the origin of all suffering. In his view, the act of coming into existence marks the beginning of a relentless journey through pain, disappointment, and inevitable death. Life, to Cioran, is not something to be celebrated, but something to endure, a tragedy inflicted upon us without our consent. He describes birth as a disaster, a catastrophic event that robs us of the peaceful non-existence we had before, replacing it with the chaos and turmoil of life. For anyone who has ever faced moments of despair or questioned the value of existence, his argument strikes a profoundly personal chord. To understand Cioran's perspective, we must first confront the inescapable reality of suffering. From the moment we are born, we are subject to physical pain, emotional turmoil, and existential uncertainty. As infants, we cry for food, warmth, or comfort, unable to articulate our needs or understand the world around us. As we grow, we encounter the disappointments of unfulfilled desires, the heartbreak of failed relationships, and the grief of losing loved ones. Life's joys, while real, are fleeting and often overshadowed by the pervasive undercurrent of suffering. Cioran's philosophy forces us to confront this harsh truth. To live is to suffer. Yet, it is important to consider whether this view tells the whole story. While Cioran emphasizes the tragedy of birth and the inevitability of suffering. Life is not devoid of beauty or meaning. The same world that burdens us with pain also offers moments of profound joy, connection, and wonder. Think of a parent holding their child for the first time, a musician lost in the act of creation, or a hiker standing atop a mountain, awestruck by the grandeur of nature. These experiences, however transient, remind us that life is a complex tapestry of both light and shadow. Balancing Cioran's despair with an appreciation for life's beauty is not an easy task, but it is a necessary one. For many, the ability to find meaning amidst suffering is what makes life worth living. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, argued in Man's Search for Meaning that even in the darkest circumstances, humans have the capacity to find purpose. This perspective stands in stark contrast to Cioran's pessimism, suggesting that while suffering is inevitable, it need not define our existence. Instead, it can serve as a catalyst for growth, empathy, and resilience. At the heart of Cioran's philosophy is the paradox of consciousness, which he describes as both a curse and a gift. Consciousness allows us to reflect on our experiences, create art, and seek understanding, but it also amplifies our awareness of suffering and mortality. Unlike animals, which live instinctively and without the burden of existential thought, humans are acutely aware of their own impermanence. This awareness, while a hallmark of human intelligence, often leads to anxiety, despair, and a sense of futility. Cioran likens consciousness to a dagger in the flesh, an unavoidable source of pain that both sustains and torments us. To illustrate this paradox, consider the experience of falling in love. On the one hand, love brings immense joy, connection, and fulfillment. On the other hand, it exposes us to vulnerability, jealousy, and the fear of loss. Consciousness intensifies these emotions, allowing us to savor the highs while magnifying the lows. This duality is a defining feature of the human condition, one that Cioran explores with unflinching honesty. Despite his bleak outlook, Cioran's critique of consciousness offers an opportunity for reflection. If awareness is both a blessing and a curse, how can we navigate its challenges? One approach is mindfulness, a practice rooted in ancient traditions like Buddhism. Mindfulness encourages individuals to observe their thoughts and emotions without judgment, fostering a sense of presence and acceptance. By cultivating mindfulness, we can learn to coexist with suffering rather than be overwhelmed by it. While Cioran himself might dismiss such practices as naive or insufficient, they offer a practical way to mitigate the despair he so vividly describes. The question of procreation lies at the center of Cioran's ethical concerns. He provocatively labels procreation a crime, arguing that bringing a child into the world imposes existence and, by extension, suffering on another being without their consent. This perspective aligns with antinatalist philosophy, which posits that non-existence is preferable to life because it spares individuals from pain. While this argument is unsettling, it raises important ethical questions about the responsibilities of parenthood and the nature of consent. To examine Cioran's claim, consider a scenario familiar to many: parents who choose to have children despite knowing the challenges they will face. Their decision may stem from love, hope, or a desire to create a legacy, but it also subjects their child to the uncertainties and hardships of life. From the antinatalist perspective, this act is ethically questionable, as it prioritizes the parent's desires over the well-being of the unborn child. However, critics of antinatalism argue that life, despite its difficulties, is not inherently negative. They point to the potential for happiness, achievement, and connection as reasons to value existence. This debate takes on new significance in the context of contemporary ethics. In a world grappling with climate change, overpopulation, and economic inequality, the decision to have children carries broader implications. For example, bringing a child into a world facing environmental degradation raises questions about their quality of life and the strain on finite resources. At the same time, the desire to nurture, create, and love is deeply ingrained in human nature, making the choice to procreate both personal and universal. Cioran's critique forces us to confront the ethical dimensions of these decisions. Is it fair to impose life on another being, knowing the suffering it entails? Or is the act of creation a testament to hope and resilience in the face of adversity? These questions do not have easy answers, but they challenge us to think critically about our values and responsibilities. Ultimately, Cioran's exploration of birth, consciousness, and procreation serves as a mirror, reflecting the complexities of the human condition. His philosophy is not meant to provide comfort or solutions, but to provoke thought and challenge assumptions. By engaging with his ideas, we are compelled to examine our own beliefs about life, suffering, and the choices we make, whether we agree with his conclusions or not. Cioran's work remains a powerful testament to the depth and difficulty of human existence. Throughout history, the themes of pessimism and hope have been central to human thought, often emerging in the stories and cultural narratives that shape our understanding of existence. From philosophical debates to everyday struggles, these concepts are explored in ways that resonate deeply with the human experience. Emil Cioran's philosophy, centered on the inherent suffering of life and the tragedy of birth, provides a lens through which to examine these narratives. By drawing on historical and cultural anecdotes, as well as personal and fictional stories, we can better understand the dilemmas of existence and the choices that define it. One historical example that captures the tension between pessimism and hope is the life and work of the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. Like Cioran, Schopenhauer viewed life as inherently filled with suffering, driven by an insatiable will that perpetuates pain and dissatisfaction. Despite this bleak outlook, his philosophy found a paradoxical beauty in the aesthetic experience of art and music, which he believed offered a temporary escape from the tyranny of the will. Schopenhauer's ideas have influenced countless individuals, including the composer Richard Wagner, whose operas often grapple with themes of love, redemption, and the existential struggle. This interplay between despair and hope is not limited to philosophy and art. It is also evident in cultural narratives that address the human condition. Take, for example, the myth of Sisyphus from Greek mythology. Sisyphus is condemned to push a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down each time he nears the top. The futility of his task mirrors Cioran's view of life as a series of repetitive struggles with no ultimate resolution. Yet, as Albert Camus famously interpreted, Sisyphus can be imagined as happy, finding meaning in the act of pushing the boulder despite its inevitable descent. This reinterpretation highlights the possibility of embracing life's absurdities without succumbing to despair. In a more modern context, personal stories of parenthood often illustrate the dilemmas of existence that Cioran critiques. Consider a couple deciding whether to have children in an uncertain world. On the one hand, they may feel the deep human desire to nurture, love, and create a family. On the other hand, they may wrestle with the ethical implications of bringing a child into a world facing challenges like climate change, political instability, and social inequality. This tension reflects the broader philosophical debate about the value of existence and the responsibilities of procreation. For many, the decision to have children is an act of hope, a belief in the potential for joy, growth, and resilience despite life's hardships. Fictional narratives also offer a way to explore these themes in relatable and impactful ways. One such example is the novel Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. The story follows a group of children raised in a dystopian society where their sole purpose is to provide organs for others. As they come to terms with their fate, the characters grapple with questions about the meaning of life and the morality of their existence. The novel echoes Cioran's assertion that life is imposed upon us without consent, raising profound ethical questions about the conditions under which life is created and sustained. Another fictional example is the movie Children of Men, set in a world where humanity faces extinction due to mass infertility. The story follows a group of individuals striving to protect the first child born in decades, symbolizing hope in the face of despair. The film juxtaposes the tragedy of a collapsing world with the profound beauty of new life, illustrating the duality of existence that Cioran's philosophy seeks to unravel. While the characters confront immense suffering, Their actions underscore the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring belief in the possibility of a better future. Real-life stories also provide a lens through which to view the influence of philosophies like Cioran's. For instance, the antinatalist movement, inspired in part by thinkers like Cioran and Schopenhauer, has gained attention in recent years. Individuals within this movement often share their personal struggles with the ethics of procreation, citing concerns about overpopulation, environmental degradation, and the inevitability of suffering. These stories highlight the practical implications of philosophical ideas, bringing abstract concepts into the realm of everyday decision-making. One particularly striking example is the story of a woman who chose not to have children after grappling with the environmental impact of her decision. Her choice was shaped by a belief that bringing a child into a world facing climate change and resource scarcity would be irresponsible. While her decision was deeply personal, it reflects broader societal questions about the ethics of reproduction and the responsibilities we bear toward future generations. This narrative illustrates how Cioran's critique of procreation resonates in contemporary discussions about sustainability and ethics. At the same time, stories of resilience and hope challenge Cioran's pessimism by demonstrating the ways in which individuals find meaning and joy despite life's difficulties. Consider the story of a single father who, after losing his spouse, dedicated his life to raising his child with love and determination. Despite the pain of his loss, he found purpose in his role as a parent, creating a life filled with moments of connection and fulfillment. Such stories serve as a counterpoint to Cioran's bleak view of existence, suggesting that while suffering is inevitable, it does not preclude the possibility of meaningful and rewarding experiences. Cultural anecdotes also shed light on the ways in which communities navigate the balance between despair and hope. In Japan, the concept of wabi-sabi embraces the beauty of imperfection and transience, finding value in the flaws and fleeting moments of life. This philosophy offers a striking contrast to Cioran's emphasis on suffering, suggesting that acceptance of life's imperfections can lead to a deeper appreciation of its beauty. Similarly, the African philosophy of Ubuntu, which emphasizes interconnectedness and shared humanity, highlights the potential for collective resilience and compassion in the face of adversity. Ultimately, the stories and examples that explore pessimism and hope uncover the complexity of the human experience. While Cioran's philosophy provides a sobering critique of existence, it is not the only perspective through which to view life. By examining these narratives, we gain a richer understanding of the dilemmas and possibilities that define our lives, allowing us to navigate the challenges of existence with greater insight and empathy. Whether through historical examples, cultural traditions, or personal stories, the interplay between despair and hope remains a central theme of what it means to be human. Emil Cioran's philosophy offers a stark, unrelenting view of life as a burden we are forced to bear without our consent. For him, the very act of existence is suffused with suffering, and he often described life as an ordeal to be endured rather than celebrated. One of the most striking aspects of Cioran's approach to coping with this existential reality is his description of writing as a form of postponed suicide. In his view, writing became a way to channel his despair, to articulate his inner turmoil without succumbing to the ultimate act of self-destruction. This notion, while deeply pessimistic, also reveals a certain resilience and acknowledgement that even in the midst of despair, there are ways to navigate the complexities of existence. Cioran's method of using writing as a coping mechanism reflects a broader truth about the human condition: the need to find outlets for our thoughts and emotions. For him, the act of putting words to paper was not about seeking solutions or crafting a coherent philosophical system, but about expressing the raw, unfiltered reality of his experience. He viewed his aphorisms not as definitive truths, but as fleeting reflections of his state of mind at any given moment. This fluidity allowed him to confront his despair directly, turning his suffering into something creative and, paradoxically, life-affirming. His writing serves as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, the act of creation can offer a semblance of purpose. While Cioran's approach is uniquely his own, The broader question of how to endure life's suffering has been a central concern of human thought for centuries. Modern approaches to coping with existence often draw on ancient philosophies like Stoicism, which offers practical tools for navigating adversity. Stoicism teaches that while we cannot control external events, we can control our responses to them. This perspective aligns with the idea of focusing on what is within our power and letting go of what is not. For example, someone facing a career setback might choose to view the experience as an opportunity for growth rather than a catastrophic failure. By shifting their perspective, they can reduce their emotional distress and move forward with greater resilience. Therapy is another modern approach that provides valuable insights into coping with life's challenges. Unlike Cioran's solitary and introspective method, therapy involves engaging with another person, often a trained professional who can help us explore our thoughts and emotions in a supportive environment. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, for instance, focuses on identifying and reframing negative thought patterns that contribute to anxiety and depression. By challenging these patterns, individuals can develop healthier ways of thinking and improve their overall well-being. For someone struggling with existential despair, therapy can provide tools to reframe their perspective and find meaning in their experiences. Spirituality also offers a framework for coping with life's suffering, though it takes a different approach than either Stoicism or therapy. Many spiritual traditions emphasize the idea of transcendence, rising above the material and temporal concerns of life to connect with something greater. Practices like meditation, prayer, and mindfulness can help individuals cultivate a sense of peace and acceptance, even in the face of suffering. For example, the Buddhist concept of dukkha acknowledges the inevitability of suffering, but also offers a path to liberation through the Eightfold Path. This approach provides a way to navigate life's challenges while fostering a sense of inner harmony. While Cioran might dismiss these modern approaches as overly optimistic or insufficiently attuned to life's harsh realities, they nonetheless offer practical tools for many people. Each method, whether philosophical, therapeutic, or spiritual, addresses different aspects of the human experience, providing a range of options for coping with the complexities of existence. In reflecting on Cioran's ideas and these modern approaches, I find that cultivating meaning amidst despair requires a combination of self-awareness, connection, and action. One suggestion is to embrace the paradoxes of life rather than seeking to resolve them. Just as Cioran found solace in the act of writing despite his despair, we too can find meaning in activities that allow us to engage with the world creatively and authentically. This might involve pursuing a passion, building meaningful relationships, or contributing to a cause we care about. Even small acts of kindness or moments of connection can create a ripple effect, adding a sense of purpose to our lives. Another suggestion is to practice gratitude, not as a denial of life's difficulties, but as a way to balance our perspective. For example, someone going through a difficult time might take a moment each day to reflect on something they are thankful for, whether it's the support of a friend, a beautiful sunset, or a good book. This practice can help shift focus from what is lacking to what is present, creating a sense of appreciation even amidst challenges. Mindfulness, too, is a powerful tool for cultivating meaning. By staying present in the moment, we can reduce the tendency to ruminate on the past or worry about the future. For instance, during a stressful situation, taking a few deep breaths and grounding oneself in the present can provide clarity and calm. Over time, mindfulness can help us develop greater resilience and a deeper understanding of ourselves. Finally, I believe it's important to acknowledge the role of community in coping with existence. While Cioran often emphasized solitude, many people find strength and meaning through their connections with others, whether it's through family, friendships, or community groups. These relationships provide support, encouragement, and a sense of belonging. Sharing our struggles with others can help alleviate feelings of isolation and remind us that we are not alone in facing life's challenges. Cioran's philosophy may seem bleak, but it also serves as a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. His writings, while steeped in despair, also reflect a deep engagement with the questions that define our existence. By exploring his methods alongside modern approaches, we can gain a richer understanding of how to navigate life's complexities, whether through creative expression, philosophical reflection, or connection with others. We have the capacity to endure and even thrive amidst the inevitable challenges of existence. Emil Cioran's exploration of life, suffering, and the existential burden of being born offers a profound and unsettling lens through which to view human existence. His philosophy, rooted in a deep skepticism about the value of life, challenges many of the assumptions we hold about the world, procreation, and our purpose. By framing birth as the original tragedy and life as a series of imposed hardships, Cioran forces us to confront the darker aspects of existence that are often ignored or rationalized. His work does not aim to provide comfort or solutions, but rather to provoke reflection and challenge us to question the very foundations of our beliefs. One of the most striking takeaways from Cioran's philosophy is his assertion that suffering is intrinsic to life. From the moment we are born, we are thrust into a world of uncertainty, pain, and eventual mortality. This suffering is magnified by our consciousness, which, while granting us the ability to think, create, and connect, also burdens us with the awareness of our limitations and impermanence. This paradox of consciousness, a gift and a curse, underscores much of Cioran's work, highlighting the inescapable duality of the human condition. Another key insight is Cioran's critique of procreation. By labeling it as a crime, he raises profound ethical questions about the act of bringing new life into the world. His argument forces us to consider the implications of creating life in a world fraught with suffering and uncertainty. While this perspective may seem radical, it opens the door to important conversations about responsibility, consent, and the ethical dimensions of parenthood. In a time when environmental, social, and political challenges loom large, these questions take on renewed significance, prompting us to reevaluate long-held assumptions about the value and purpose of procreation. Cioran's philosophy also emphasizes the importance of confronting life's absurdities rather than seeking easy answers or distractions. He rejected systems of thought that offered clear paths to meaning or salvation, choosing instead to engage directly with the raw realities of existence. This approach, while difficult, encourages a form of honesty and authenticity that is rare in contemporary discussions about life's purpose. By acknowledging life's inherent contradictions and challenges, we can develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. At the same time, Cioran's work invites us to consider alternative ways of coping with existence. While he found solace in writing as a form of postponed suicide, modern approaches such as mindfulness, therapy, and community engagement offer additional tools for navigating life's complexities. These methods, grounded in the recognition of suffering, provide practical ways to cultivate resilience, meaning, and connection. They remind us that while suffering is inevitable, it is not insurmountable, and that even amidst despair, there is room for growth and joy. In reflecting on Cioran's philosophy, we are reminded of the value of questioning life's meaning. This process of inquiry, while often uncomfortable, is essential to understanding ourselves and our place in the world. By asking difficult questions about existence, suffering, and purpose, we open ourselves to new perspectives and possibilities. These questions do not always lead to clear answers, but they foster a deeper engagement with the complexities of life, enriching our experience and broadening our understanding. Ultimately, Cioran's work serves as both a challenge and an invitation. It challenges us to confront the harsh realities of existence without retreating into denial or escapism. At the same time, it invites us to engage with life's questions in a way that is honest, thoughtful, and transformative, whether we agree with his conclusions or not. His philosophy encourages us to think critically about the world and our place in it, fostering a sense of curiosity and engagement that is essential to the human experience. In engaging with Cioran's ideas, we are not simply passive recipients of his worldview. We are active participants in a larger conversation about what it means to be human. This conversation extends beyond philosophy into art, literature, and everyday life, touching on the universal themes that define our existence. By sharing our thoughts, experiences, and questions with others, we contribute to a collective exploration of meaning, creating opportunities for connection and growth. The value of this engagement lies not in finding definitive answers, but in the process of inquiry itself. In discussing and debating life's questions, we expand our horizons, challenge our assumptions, and deepen our understanding, whether through personal reflection, dialogue with others, or creative expression. This process allows us to navigate the complexities of existence with greater awareness and intention. As we grapple with Cioran's ideas and their implications, we are reminded of the importance of fostering open, thoughtful discussions about life's most pressing questions. These conversations, grounded in curiosity and respect, have the potential to bring us closer to the truths that define our shared humanity. By engaging with Cioran's work and the broader philosophical traditions it represents, we contribute to a richer, more nuanced understanding of what it means to live, suffer, and find meaning in a world that often defies comprehension. And so, we've reached the end of this journey into Emil Cioran's dark yet illuminating philosophy, a philosophy that dares to ask the questions most of us shy away from. Birth as a tragedy, consciousness as a curse, procreation as a moral dilemma. These ideas challenge us to rethink everything we thought we knew about life. But perhaps the most profound takeaway is this: it's not about agreeing or disagreeing with Cioran's conclusions. It's about daring to question, daring to reflect, and daring to confront the truths that make us human. If this exploration resonated with you, or even if it unsettled you, I invite you to join the conversation. What do you think? Is birth truly a tragedy, as Cioran believed? Or do you see beauty in the chaos of existence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective, and I'm sure others watching this video would, too. Remember, the ideas we've discussed today aren't just abstract theories, they're a lens through which we can better understand ourselves and the world we live in. If you found this video thought-provoking, please take a moment to like and share it with others who might appreciate diving into these deep waters. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when we release our next exploration into the unknown. Your support truly makes this possible. If you'd like to go a step further, consider donating through the link in the description or joining our Patreon. Every contribution helps us keep this channel alive and growing, and we're so grateful to have you as part of this community. Thank you for spending your time with us today. As you leave, I hope you carry these ideas with you not as answers, but as questions worth pondering. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and remember, the act of questioning is the first step to understanding. See you in the next video.